Hey, Gabriel. How are you, man?
Yes,
We are
Ahmed,
live,
I'm
by the
doing
way.
okay. We are already live. Perfecto. Just on time. Just on time.
No,
Delivering. How
no,
project management is.
you're perfectly on time. That's fine. How are you, man?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. Here in the UK, we had a little heat wave last week and a week before. So we are now cooling down a little bit, which is fantastic. So let's say things will go back to normal. But overall, nothing to complain about. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it so hot in UK or not really?
So this country is not prepared for any hot weather. Let's put it this way. And it Celsius above 30 degrees is a big challenge, because even the windows you cannot open at wide open at all. Air condition is very rarely an accessory for a house. So yeah, we are not prepared for this.
Good. So
So to
we're
give you an
live.
example, there are schools which are actually being got closed because of the hot weather. 32 degrees, they're closing the schools.
See, 30 to 32 degrees for us is like we wear long sleeves. No, I'm kidding. No,
Yeah,
no, I'm
that's what I'm
kidding.
saying.
32 degrees is the average for a not really a hot day. Hot days here like 40, 45, 42,
Yeah,
41, 39. That's a hot day for us.
yeah, yeah, but here
Good, good, good.
something which is a different challenge, different mindset. Anyway,
I told you, you're welcome to come join me in my summer house.
okay, that's something which I'm gonna take advantage sometime soon. Yeah,
So today we're going to talk a little bit about finance and procurement,
yeah,
and there is something I want to tell to the guys who are watching that see we did not have. Um, let me rephrase this. Most of what we saw is not waterfall only. So a lot of what we saw actually applies generally to project management because some guys are wondering where is agile. For example, last week we talked about scope and schedule, Gaber,
yeah,
and people were wondering where is agile. Well, there is not an agile section of the PMBOK, but
hmm
when you talk about schedule, you talk about flexibility in the schedule. When you talk about scope, you talk about flexibility in the scope. Plus, agile, I think I personally we're going to cover a little bit of it next week. Even though next week I think mostly for AI. I think session 8 is for AI mostly, Gabriel, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. But we definitely going to cover part specifically for the agile since some people asked about this. Where is agile? So we're going to cover that. So session 8, if I may have a preview, is going to be about risk and AI. So we will have like 15 minutes maybe for a little bit of agile, a little bit.
okay,
All right. So as usual, we prepared for you guys some slides. So I will be sharing the screen, Gaber.
sure.
Let me just go yeah, here. Yep. Do you see my screen, Gaber?
Yes, it's coming up.
Yeah. Is it on?
You know, UK is slightly slow. It's coming up.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It should be on.
See, I can
Yes.
see your screen. Yes, I can see your screen.
No worries. So, Gaber, you
Yes.
know that PMBOK 8 renamed the cost management. Now it's called finance
hmm
management.
Yeah.
That's because when we were teaching PMP the past 15, 20 years, in the chapter cost management, actually, to be honest, we were mostly focusing on a little bit how to build the budget for the project. And most of the cost management for us was in the monitoring and controlling process group in the past. Now
hmm
it's called focus area. And it was mostly about the cost performance measurements. Okay. You know, the
Yeah.
famous earned value analysis. Now, when we talk about cost variance, schedule variance, cost performance index, how to calculate, the overall the project performance, how to interpret that project performance, what are the recommended action based on the performance of the project, how to report on performance. That's mostly what we were teaching in the PMP exam. Most of it were for in the PMP training. Most of it were for the PMP exam. Some stuff I personally teach are not for the PMP exam, but for the sake of applying on projects. Okay. Now it's been renamed to finance. And if you noticed, Gabriel, procurement is no more a performance domain / knowledge area as we called before. Procurement now is an appendix. And when I invited when I had the authors of the PMBOK 8, they explained the reason. The main reason was that they did not think that procurement was mandatory in all projects. Not all project managers conduct procurement.
Yeah.
Since a lot of the resources they use actually are available already in-house, or already there is pre-established contract, but so not every project manager really goes through the procurement process, conducting a bidder conference, selecting a vendor, shortlisting vendors. So usually there is what we call a procurement department, okay, or a purchasing department in a company that does the work, giver. So that's why procurement is no more mandatory, or I wouldn't call it mandatory, but no more a performance domain, but rather an appendix in the PMBOK now. And I really think it makes sense. What do you think, Gabriel? As usual, we don't fully agree.
Or I would say partially agree. No, but this is actually an area where I'm fully in line with what you just said. Simply, using my own experience. So I have 16 years as a corporate project manager, and I never, ever decided any contract type for any vendor, even though I was in a position to being the first line contact to a vendor, because, the organization already provided a procurement department or a procurement manager attached to the project. So that's no longer was technically my remit of expertise. Am I, less of a project manager? I don't think so. But that is, I would say, the real experience of, working in a corporate environment. For the PMP, I learned all the contract types back and forth all together. But for real life is just not happening that way. Also, I would say that the procurement is always close to costs / finances, because they are very, interrelated with each other. Even though sometimes, when we're dealing with internal or external projects within the organization, even internal projects do have some level of procurement or cost tracking, which needs to be dealt with, but the same principles can be applied. So, no, I mean, I think overall, what we went through in this series in the past 7 weeks really is that there are, I would say, so the current or the new version of this PMP exam is really going to be closer to real life, the way how we're running projects real life, really, that it's getting closer between the best practice and then how real life works, because at the moment I think there's a big distance between them, there's a big wall in between them. Now it's just started to getting slightly closer with each other.
Yeah. So as usual, here's a snapshot, guys, from the PMBOK 8. This is from the finance chapter, the finance performance domain. So you have 4 processes. And please let me be clear about this. You don't need to memorize the processes. You need to understand the processes. I mean, there are 40 processes. I mean, the ideal is if you really have that table, that process mapping table, which we shared. I think we shared like in the first session. Paper. Yeah. The ideal is if you memorize it, not for the PMP exam only, but even for your own work. Okay. It helps you a lot. I mean, I personally, when I started Gaber in project management, it was with PMBOK 3. I memorized that page in PMBOK 3 with all the processes, and then with PMBOK 4, etc. So it helps a lot, really, understand what are the next steps you need to do, what you need to do first, what you need to focus on, etc. But if you cannot memorize, it's fine, but at least understand the logic. You have to understand what happens in the initiating of the project, what happens in the planning of the project, what happens in the executing of the project, what happens in the monitoring, controlling of the project. So, you have to realize this, guys. The PMP exam, some of the questions, let me say this. Some of the questions in the PMP exam are cross-domain. And I think I mentioned this already in the first and second session. What does cross-domain mean? Don't expect a question to ask you when it talks about risk that it will ask you only about risk. No, it could, bring up a risk related to a vendor, that risk caused by a miscalculation of a team member, and the team member ignored an item in the business environment, and now it's affecting the recruiting of 2 new members. It's really cross-domain, okay? And that's the context, and then it puts you, and then it asks the question, and then it gives you 4 possibilities. And the 4 possibilities, or 5, let's go with 4. There could be possibility from the people domain, and then from the process domain about risk, and then from the process domain about maybe, let's say, resources, and then one from the business domain. So that's a cross-domain question. So don't expect just a question focusing only on procurement, this question focusing only on AI, this question focusing only on finance. No, there will be questions that are cross-domain. I wouldn't say all questions, but I wouldn't say a few questions. A number of questions or a percentage of questions. I don't know. No one knows. It could be 30%. It could be 60%. It could be more. It could be less. I don't know, Gable. But there will be questions which are cross-domain. Now, this is why I said this clearly. Look, guys, if you cannot memorize 40 processes plus the agile processes, so when we say 40 processes, that's the generic project management, the overall project management, which is closer to waterfall, but you have agile as well. Okay, if you cannot memorize 40, it's fine. You have 7 performance domains, you need to know by heart. You have 5 focus areas, initiating, planning, blah, blah, blah. You have to know by heart. And then you have to logically know what happens in initiating, in planning, in executing, in monitoring, controlling, and in closing. Because 15 to 20% of the questions in the PMP exam, they give you answers that all seem right, but there is always that keyword, which is what happens in planning, what happens in execution, what happens, you are measuring the performance, which means you are in monitoring, controlling. So you really need to know by logic that step or that tool or that process in which focus area is it, Gaber?
Yeah, and so I personally teach my students to learn the 49 processes to some extent by heart, but I created a method for that and an exercise spreadsheet where people can practice on a regular basis. So sooner or later you get it. But I will also say the same caveat that PMI will never ask you this, but the expectation is that you know where you are in a process, or now in this case, the performance domains, that you need to know where you are as soon as you see the keywords, as soon as you see the scenario. And that will just simply helping you find correct answer quicker and faster as well. And I always use the example of, analysis. Now in Agile, there is almost nothing to be analyzed, because what analysis means on best practice terms, you go details, you have spreadsheets, you have documentation. Now that's exactly what never happens on Agile. So even that keyword will helping you to move more on a waterfall direction. And then if I'm going with the performance domains in this case, I can only do analysis in two times in this process, which is going to be either planning to create the great plan, or I go and in monitoring, controlling to check whatever I did is matching with the plan. So that's the only reason I do analysis. And those type of keywords, when you create your cost baseline, which will be still, let's say, essential for the exam, this is where the real gain is, and that will help you with the clarity to envision. Okay, here I have a project. This is where we are. This is what we plan to achieve. Because many cases, if you think about it this way, you are able to almost figure out what's the best answer, even without looking into what answers the question is imposing. And that is just also give you more clarity looking forward.
I just realized I have put the wrong name on the live. Instead of saying finance and procurement in PMBOK 8, I wrote in PMBOK 7. It's okay. It's already live, so I cannot change it. Never mind. So guys, what happens in finance and procurement? Let's say in planning, you plan for your financials, you estimate the costs. Okay. So in this process, estimating the costs, Gaber, I teach a few cost estimating techniques. Okay. Then you develop the budget. We will look at how to develop the budget in 2 different ways, or more than a few more than two different ways, and then you have to monitor and control your finances. Okay, this chapter, guys, the purpose of when you start reading the finance chapter in PMBOK 8, you will see that it starts with talking about value maximization. Okay, how to maximize the value in the project. So finance performance domain doesn't focus only on managing costs, but also it wants to ensure that the project will deliver the maximum value for the organization or for the client. And that's the purpose, I think, of all of these performance domains we have. So it goes beyond cost management, beyond controlling costs, just simply tracking spending to stay within the limits. Also, it's about, it goes deeper now into investments. It talks about types of investments, funding, source of funding, where to invest, where does it make sense to invest. Also, it focuses on supporting decisions by having, let's say, financial insights. Okay. Also, in case of any trade-offs, removing parts from here, focusing on other parts from here, reprioritizing the investment priorities, because in the PMP exam, the new version, there will be a question at least about investment priorities. And this, when it asks you about investment priorities, for example, it tells you the company has got limited budget, there are a few initiatives, it will mention a couple of initiatives, and then there is something that happened that changed the priorities and what to focus on. You can expect questions like this. Yes. Protecting resources, this is also part now of finance performance domain, reducing any waste. And of course, when we say reducing waste, that means we're gaining elsewhere by not spending much, or by removing that waste which costed us money, so we can have better financial, let's say, reports or financial status. Okay, so these are some of the core focus areas or focuses of the finance performance domain. Okay, and it focuses a lot on maximizing the value by, you see, when we align the spending of the project, when we align it with the strategy of the organization, that's already maximizing value. When we put or we give the high priority work more importance, higher priority, that means we're allocating the spending to the right place. So we're not spending, imagine you have limited budget of 50,000, and you have a lot of work to do. Starting with high priority value work or high value work, that means you're going to allocate the finance, the spending, the budget to that, because it's the highest value. Let's say it's like the must-have in Agile, or the should-have. Now, even if no much budget is remaining, and there is a lot of nice-to-have work, it's fine. That's nice to have. Okay. And something also interesting, which is to know how to balance the cost, the benefit, along with any other constraints or aspects such as risk. Okay. If we go back to the definition of a project we saw a few weeks ago, it's the initiation is about really making sure that what we're creating is worth the money we're investing. So guys, you can expect a couple of questions in the PMP exam touching on this. Is what we're doing really worth the effort we're doing, and what is being created? Is it worth the money being allocated to it and being spent? Okay. And then, of course, monitoring the benefits, the outcomes, part of whether the benefits management plan or the cost performance tracking. And finally, also, adjusting the funding based on performance. Now, when we say adjusting the funding based on performance, we can talk about several projects. The projects with a better performance, we get more funding, or adjusting the funding based on performance means in the same project, like we have the review gates. Okay, when we're going from one gate to another. Now, in case the project is not really performing well, then we're removing the funding. We're keeping the minimum just for bug fixing, for example, or for just running the product. And then we will allocate the funding to something else which is more profitable, Gaber. I think it makes sense here.
I think where I definitely agree is slides are beautiful. That's number one. The secondly, because even from this slide, you can talk about 18, like an hour just about this single page.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so fascinating. But at the same time, I think everybody should be aware that PMI is taking the role of the project manager from a very narrow view, which is just the project, whatever within this boundary of the project. And technically, they expanding this view of are you really understand of why we choose this project over to the other one? Do you understand the benefits and how those benefits will be realized? Whereas I would say currently that's mainly the job of the sponsor. That's where the sponsor, who's in real life, that's a program manager, in most cases a portfolio manager. But PMI will make sure that you have a better awareness of all this, because that's also your responsibility, not just just delivering the as is as a narrow view, but now you have an end-to-end view, and that's what you need to be aware of. And yeah, PMI will challenge each and every candidate with the question. But again, I think whoever came across the advice for PMP prep, okay, you better learn all the formulas, you better do lots of formula type of questions, that's going to be even a worse advice than what it is today, because you need to have an awareness. That's fully agree with that. But PMI is more stressing how you maximize the value through a challenging scenario versus do you understand the budget at completion, the BAC calculation, yes or no, because every company does this differently. Worst case scenario, you will Google it up or you will chat GPT up. So what's the point? But how to understand that how the project fits into a big picture, and how we ensure, besides a very rigid change control, for example, how we gain the benefits and the return on investment in the end. That's something which the PMs have to be aware of altogether.
Yeah. And by the way, why the focus is strong on value maximization? You see, this is what when PMI introduced this finance, first it wanted to enlarge the scope of the focus of the project manager, because now the project manager also should have some knowledge, some skills about finance, source of funding, types of funding, should have also more of sense of responsibility. And I don't mean the project manager was not responsible before, but a little bit of more sense of responsibility. You notice probably, Gaber, in the PMP exam in the 2021 version, the ECO 2021 version, almost always the answer that talks about cost increase, you leave it out. You don't choose it. Adding resources into the project, bringing an external expert, I don't know what. That is not, because PMI doesn't want project managers that follow the easy solutions. We have a problem, okay, ask for more money. We have an issue, okay, and increase the resources. The schedule is tight, okay, let's add resources. But companies don't appreciate that, because then the projects will end up way over budget. Over budget. Okay, and PMI doesn't want its PMP certified practitioners to be known for people who really always go for the easy solution. No, PMI wanted PMP certified professional or practitioner. They are known for not running after cost increase, but rather going or searching for effective solutions. Let's review the plan. Let's sit together with the team and revise or check what we can do. Maybe let's do something, do the work concurrently in parallel. Let's do this, let's do that. Not go for the easy solution. That's one of the things PMI wanted its students to be known for. Okay, that's among many other things that PMI wants us to be known for. And unfortunately, there are not many people who talk about this. Whenever we start the training, we talk about this. Hey guys, okay, let me start the training with this. I'll explain to you the PMI's mindset. PMI mindset means how PMI views project management and how it wants you to answer in the exam. And then we go through the chapters and then some tips and tricks and then mock questions and then some readiness check and then you go. But no one talked how PMI wants companies to view you, PMP certified people. No one talks about this almost. I mean, I don't say no one at all, but it's rare really to hear someone talking, hey guys, let me teach you, let me help you understand how PMI wants companies and the world to look at you, PMP certified practitioners. Here's how it wants you to look like. Here's how it wants companies to know you, or what kind of image it wants companies to have about you. That's what's missing, and that's what we are focusing on now in this new PMP training, Gabriel.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great approach, because that's how you definitely can make a difference. Because at the end of the day, I think this is not just a certificate that's your passport to operate. We can also say that, or your commitment to the career path. That's also like to say about the PMP. And then I think the institute is really making a good job and lots of effort into the, to realizing this value in real life, or not just, let's say, oh, I have a badge. Okay, let's move on. What does that really mean? So they're really trying to make it more meaningful. And I think anyone who questioning the value of a PMP, well, I think is a waste of time in that sense, because the industry already made a decision that they see the value. The institute is doing a good job to also involving big companies, to getting feedback from them, which area they are, where the certificate can add more value in real life, and finance is being one of them. And that's how, this also triggered the change, because I think that's even better, instead of, surveying just project managers, but really what the companies are really, how they're going to benefit of this, to maintain the value and the expertise as well at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So when we talk about project funding in the PMBOK 8, okay, it's about how the project acquires the financial resources in order to start the project, to carry on with the work. Okay, so that's what the project funding is about in PMBOK 8. So there are different funding sources. Okay, there is some you definitely can rely on some internal budgets from the organization. Okay, especially if the organization is funding its own initiatives, when it's creating its own products or services, offering them to the users, external users. We talk about, we can call that the B2C projects, or B2M, etc. One of the major sources of funding is the contract itself with the customer. Okay, so you make an agreement with the customer, or whoever is buying the product or the service, and they can have some upfront payment, so you can finance the activities, so you can start, or you can start, and then whenever you reach certain milestones, you can get paid, or worst case scenario, you get paid when the work is done. That's in the old waterfall. Now we are more talking about a more modern waterfall. Okay. Sometimes we get financed for the project through grants, especially when we're talking about some projects that receive grants from international institutions, some development programs, for example. Also, there is by the way, PMBOK 8 also talks about crowdfunding, Gaber. So that's like getting funds collected from interested customers who give small contributions that would provide the project with let's say decent funding. So these are
do you know
different
why they specify this right now, that level of details? Do you know why they're doing it? Because many people believe that PMP is just for specific industries. For example, non-profit project managers will never benefit from a PMP. And this is actually make it very specific that, yes, this is also for you. Or you are in the educational industry. Is this for you? Yes, this is for you. This is not just for construction, not just for IT. It's also equally for marketing, for banking, for finance, to any kind of project, really. And this is just, helping that justifying, because I'm not sure at you, Ahmed, but time for time, I do have some people reaching out to me, and they explaining, this is my career path, this is where I'm at currently, this is the industry I'm working in. I'm not sure that I can benefit from a PMP. And then even though they have, like, say, 10 years as a project manager, and they having a doubt that in my industry will be really, really worth it. And I have to kind of let them know, yeah, this is definitely going to be worth it. Or they're going to say, I have 10 years, but I think I should go with the CAPM. That's not really the case. You should go to the PMP right away. There's no need for this middle step, which not necessary. That's not for you. That you already have the experience.
Yeah.
But with this, there is at least that level of clarity of embracing.
And there is something on the top right corner you're gonna like, Igor. Now, the PMP, the new PMP exam is going to test you on if you really understand finances. Like, do you understand where the money comes from? Do you understand when the funding will be available for you? Because you not always get the full sum. Sometimes you get them, on increments or on parts, on installments. Who needs to approve what? How the funding conditions affect the scope, the schedule. For example, in constructing a house, the bank would say, yes, I would finance the construction of the house, but then now, you need to reach certain milestones so I can release parts of the money. And then you have to adjust your plans to prioritize those milestones, because maybe, when you prioritize the milestones, you get higher funds at the beginning, for example. And then also how you can support or lead any funding activities, whether before or during the project. So there is a new mindset. I really still wonder, people who say, I read this a few times on LinkedIn, people who say the PMP exam based on ECO 2026 is going to be 95% similar to PMP exam 2021. I say, come on, really? Probably you guys haven't read PMBOK 8 deeply. You did not read the lines, the between the lines, and you didn't read the lines backwards, not only forward, but also backward. And you did not deep dive into the ECO, because really, there will be significant change. So that's what I tell at least my students. Just before a few minutes before the call, Gaber, one of my students called me and said, "Hey, Ahmed, I couldn't find a place online. I couldn't find a place to take the exam before July 7th." I said, "Did you try online?" He said, "No." I said, "Go try online." He tried online, but then he indicated that he wants it. How do you call that? The proctor to speak French. Yeah, he couldn't find any slots. I said, "Please don't choose French. Choose English, because most of the proctors speak English, not French, not Japanese, not Chinese, English." And then he did that, and he found a place. And I told him, I encourage you to take it now, because you studied with the current version based on PMBOK 6 and 7. So take it now, because if you're going to take it after July 9th, you will have to restudy. Really, many of my students ask me this, "Ahmed, I didn't have time to prepare. Do you think if I take the exam in August based on the training I had with you back in April or in December last year, do you think it's going to be fine?" And I say, no, it's not going to be fine. It's not. At least my content is at least 50% different. At least. Really, I changed a lot of content. I tried to dive deeper into other parts. I try to adjust. So it's more than 50%. My colleague who is working with me on preparing the French version of the training, of the content. Sorry. So I prepared the English version with a colleague, and another colleague who's a lady. She's preparing the French version, and she told me it's 90% different than what we had before. I say. And I replied, probably 90%. I think it's 50. She thinks it's 90. So I think it's a significant percentage. So take it seriously, guys. And those who don't know what PMBOK is, what PMI is, what PMP is, those who are starting fresh, they have 3 years of experience minimum. They're discovering this world. Welcome to the club. You don't have to care about any previous versions. Now you're going to start fresh with a new version, Gaber.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think, I like to say is, so I think the people will benefit from a program where there is a more clarity provided on certain things. And what I mean by that the way how I talk to my students is that, so if somebody is really stuck and, I went through a PMI material, I think I understand, but as soon as getting down into questions, I don't know how to answer them. And normally what I say in that case, so you not have a knowledge problem necessarily, you might have just a clarity problem to differentiate between the real life project management versus how the best practice explaining it, or how the best practice universe works. And I think, in this case, what you do, Ahmed, you're providing people more clarity. which I think they should really appreciate, because many people see this change as a quick fix, like, okay, I update a couple of slides, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and the rest will be just fine. Where, as soon as we're going to do the new exams, people will have to make more and more adjustments, whereas upfront you are already ready and have a very unique program to helping people pass the exam.
Yeah. So also the PMBOK 8 talks about CapEx and OpEx, Gaber. Okay. The capital expenditures, the operational expenditures. So the difference between CapEx and OpEx, guys, and you will see, I think there will be a question in the PMP exam, the new version about this. CapEx is to increase the capital. It's like you invest in what stays for a long time, like property, like buildings, like equipment, etc. So these are what we call the physical assets. Not only physical assets, but even sometimes non-physical asset can be capex. Okay, but anyway, it's an investment for a long term. Exactly, like acquiring new servers, machines, etc. So these are called capex. Capital expenditures. OpEx are for the day-to-day operations. You spend money for ongoing operations. Can you hear me, Gabor?
Yeah, I can. I just said that the definition of OpEx. Yeah, sorry.
Did you say sorry? What?
I just also mentioned at the same time, as soon as you mentioned OpEx, I was saying the definition of the what OpEx is, but that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So, you're paying the wages, the rent, any utilities, marketing fees, etc. So, you as a project manager, probably one of the questions, and I suspect that is going to be the case study. Guys, we talked about the case study in the PMP exam. We said that in the first 60 questions, there will be a case study. And that case study will have probably 5 questions, maybe. I mean, in the full exams we have prepared for you based on the ECU 2026, the case studies have 5 questions. So you see the text displayed, and then the questions change, but the text, the context, the situation stays. 2, 3 paragraphs, 4 paragraphs, depending, and then just the questions change. So we have that prepared for you in the companion. And I suspect it is in that case study that you'd see a question about funding, and not only there, in other parts, which are we call them the questions, the standalone questions, or how we call them, but the purpose of the case study is going to give you a full idea, full picture of a company running a project or projects, and then you have to live that situation with it. Okay, so this is mainly it. I think when it talks, this is mainly it. By the way, these slides are covering the PMBOK. So this is mainly it when we talk about the capex, the opex. Budgets may be allocated for a specific purpose. A budget may end by a certain fiscal year. So, for example, if you have a project running on a couple of fiscal years, but then the budget is not allocated to the project, it's a fiscal year budget, which means if you have a project starting in September 2025, ending in June 2026, but then the budget which was approved is only for that 2025 year, you have to understand the impact of that on the rest of the project. How you're going to secure and guarantee that there will be funding prepared for 2026 that will cover the rest of the project, because securing funding for the project can be based on a fiscal year or based on the project, regardless on how many fiscal years it will run. So you have to understand that as well, right?
So what I'm thinking with this is that PMI is, let's say, sneaking in the PMO information, how PMO should work, how PMO should support you, for example, from a finances perspective, whereas it's no longer like a standalone entity. Or because many times, in your career path, you are a project manager first, then become something to do with the PMO, or you are a PMO analyst or a PMO manager first, and then you become a project manager. But this is also helping you that you kind of speaking the same language, which is essential, in a PMO realms, but also is it needs to be a well-known knowledge as a project manager as well. So
yeah. So PMI guys will test you on your knowledge of the types of funding, and also on your mastery of the timing of the funding, because that impacts planning, impacts approvals, impacts even the flexibility itself. Okay, there is sometimes more flexible funding. We call it the quarterly funding or agile funding. Sometimes there is fiscal year funding or entire project funding. So you have to understand these different terminologies, and you have to like finances. By the way, Gaber, something funny, or something. It's not funny. Something we have to expect. Not everyone who studies the PMP, they like numbers and finances. By the way, did you know that? Did you notice that?
That not everybody has the experience, or what do you mean?
No. Not every. See, for example, out of 100 students, I have, for example, studying for the PMP, for example. Not everyone likes finances and likes numbers. Some people come from purely technical background, others from legal background. Sometimes people come from schooling or education background. I've had teachers who came for the PMP. A lot of them, actually, university teachers, high school teachers. So not everyone likes finances, by the way. So,
for example,
when I jump to the earned value analysis.
They go like, that's too much, and we're asking first how many questions you're going to get on the exam, and you say them just a few. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Exactly.
Because also that goes with the paradox. I'll give you another example. So working for a big corporation or many corporations, not just only procurement, sometimes you're dedicated procurement contact, but maybe you also have a dedicated financial analyst. You have a dedicated, financial planner for you. Whereas many cases, the project managers have to deal with, the day-to-day activities, understanding the big picture, managing stakeholders, because the project profile will say, okay, you need to put more attention there. And now rather I'm going to give you a financial analyst who can support you to make sure that you're not, taking care of everything from an end-to-end perspective. And again, there is nothing wrong with this, but, there are organizations who are actually prepared to operate this way.
Yeah, good. All right. So we talked about this. Now, PMBOK 8 introduces two ways how to calculate the budget. Or actually, it's more than the budget, it's the reserve, which we will see next session when we talk about the risk. You see, when you calculate your budget, you estimate the cost of the work, then that's your cost baseline. Then you will add a reserve. Either you add it implicitly, it's within the cost baseline, or you can add it explicitly, which is outside of the cost baseline. Now, from practice, most of the project managers have the reserve implicitly included as part of the cost baseline. I'm talking about the contingency reserve for the known risks, okay? And then you have your initial budget, okay? Or exactly. We call it the initial budget because it used to be called before budget, but the project almost never ends, on that exact budget. So there will be always, most of the time, a cost overrun. And now here there is this model of having also the management reserve as implicitly added to the budget, even though in most companies we go with the management reserve as explicitly added. So actually there should be another model in between, which we can have the contingency reserve implicitly part of the baseline, but the management reserve is explicit, it's outside of it. Because the management reserve, you can touch it only when there is approval from management for unknowns, unknown risks. So it just presented these two different approaches, but next session we will see a third one, which is more probably in practice coming from the PMBOK 7 rather than these two coming from PMBOK 8. These are just the how to build the project budget paper from in PMBOK 8.
Yeah, I know. The only thing I would like to add is that the initial budget, technically that's called previously the project budget, and comparing how we do things today, the left-hand side will be still the strongest part of creating, let's say, a budget and all those components into it. And the right-hand side is more addressing, let's say, an iterative approach, or more addressing, let's say, outside of it, very, very traditional process-driven project where sometimes you have a cost baseline, but on top you have the contingency reserves, which is also, I would say, close to real life, because not every company run projects exactly the same way down to the T, how it's been explained in the best practice. So this can cause confusion, and I think we're going to see the confusion on questions where and the way how they're going to ask things. Because if anyone looking into this chart, contingency reserve will remain as is, management reserve will remain as is the matter of which point you are in a project or what type of project you run, is that when you include that as a cost baseline or not.
Exactly.
And I like this. And the reason why I'm like this, because that's my expertise, helping people clarifying the questions towards this type of points, why one answer was better than the other one. So that makes me exciting.
Now the fun part of managing financials in PMBOK 8 and the PMP exam, the new version, is the variance analysis. Is the work done equal to the baseline, to the project plan? Yes or no? If yes, which is perfect, we don't have a variance. We will just keep monitoring the work. But then if the work done does not equal the baseline, then there is a variance. And here we need to analyze the root cause of that variance and then take action, whether it's corrective action or if it's preventive action. Okay? So this is what we call by variance. And of course, in the current version 2021, ending in 7 days from now, there is, I think, 1 or 2 questions at most in the PMP exam about variance analysis. In the new version, I think it will remain the same number of questions, maybe 2, 3, maybe 3, maybe, I don't know. To be honest, maybe a couple of calculation questions, interpretation questions. And let me say this. It's not difficult, really. It's not difficult part. I mean, it depends on how you're getting this from the instructor or from the expert. For example, I tried myself to make this part, the variance, the earned value analysis, as easy as possible and try to explain it logically. I did not try to explain by mathematical formulas like these ones here you can see in front of you. No, I tried to explain by logic, by giving also an example, trying to explain, how to calculate a cost variance. First of all, how to understand what earned value means logically, how to calculate it mathematically, that comes second. Actual cost, I also have an exercise in my training that teaches how to calculate the actual cost, not only to have it as a given number, no, how to calculate it. Okay, there are different ways how to calculate actual cost. And then how to understand the logic between, cost variance is earned value minus actual cost. Schedule variance actually is earned value minus planned value. And I try to explain what planned value is about, logically, what does it mean? Why is it calculated in money when you talk about schedule variance? And then how to calculate the planned value also in different scenarios. And then what does it mean if a cost variance or schedule variance equals 0? What does it mean if the result is less than 0 or above 0? Okay, so all of that will stick, in the mind of the learner, not only memorizing formulas. Now, I saw a post a couple of days ago, which I did not really appreciate much, from someone on LinkedIn, and I even left a comment saying that, first of all, those formulas are not everything about, because someone said on LinkedIn, oh, here are all the PMP formulas, and they were missing. First of all, those were not all.
I think I saw that as well.
Yeah, those were not all the PMP formulas. That's for sure. That's one thing. Second thing, not all the formulas were right. Okay, and third, what is even more important than the formulas is to be able to interpret the situation from that formula, from those results, and then what is even more important, decide this one. What comes after that analysis? After that, you have a variance. Then now what? What kind of action are you taking? Okay, or you should take. And by the way, when it will put you in such a situation where there is a variance, it will give you other conditions. It will give you other information related to budget, to finance, to stakeholder expectations, to changes in business environment. How would all of that impact what kind of action you need to take? So guys, really, the PMP exam now is going deeper, smarter. Okay, now we're going to have, from this new version, real project managers who should be able to really manage any situation, and not that era of getting some questions, some dumb questions stolen online from the real exam, learning them, memorizing them, go take the exam. That should be over. You really need to understand, go deep. go deep because there are hundreds and hundreds of industries, and we want project managers or PMP practitioners and professionals who would succeed in any industry, in any initiative, because memorizing questions you find online and then you get questions similar to them, that should stop somehow.
Yeah, it will not work. It will not work. But if I go back to your slide number 9, Ahmed, I think the real message for everyone is that you need to understand both cost and schedule variance and also the variance indexes, because PMI is still interested to make sure that you understand.
Here they are. They're coming on this slide number 10.
Yeah, how you can read project status through numbers, and why this is going to be important. Because, for example, you can say your cost performance index, which is bigger than 1, which means you are under budget, but the problem is that on its own is not enough information to determine that you are on track, yes or no. You need to have side by side the schedule performance index as well, because you can say I'm under budget but behind schedule, and then the storyline automatically changes that this is not a good story at all. And the same thing other way around. If you are ahead of schedule but over budget, that is really something which we are all very happy about. That's something which requires more information. But I think that's the logic, that's the way of explanation you need to understand, and that's what really referring what you mentioned, Ahmed, in this case, that you need to see this side by side, because both information is needed to determine the project status.
Yeah, exactly. And again, guys, I repeat, learning the formulas, understanding them, memorizing them is important. And there are not only those earned value analysis formulas, there are other formulas. You will see them in the full training, either related to finance, related to communication, related to estimating. Yeah. But also what is important is to know what kind of correct action to take. If you're under budget but behind schedule, which actions are permitted, which not? And if you're ahead of schedule and at the same time under budget, what you can do, what not? Now, we're under budget. Does it mean we can add resources? Well, if it's mentioned in the context that the sponsor is okay with it, or they ask for it, but otherwise, maybe not. Now, if you're over budget and behind schedule, what can you do? Should you consider crashing? No. Should you consider fast tracking? Maybe. Should you consider other action from the proposed actions? So you really have to understand all of this and what's the impact.
Or you just resign as a project manager.
No, never. Never. No, never. That never happens. Okay, should never ever resign. All right. So investment control or controlling the investment in project funding is very important, especially when it comes to public corporations or government agencies. Okay, in those kind of entities, the investment control in project funding is higher, and usually they don't release all the money. They release the money in chunks based on performance. Okay, so you have to be a formal steward of the funding. You have to really follow through closely with the funding. Guys, let me tell you this. Now, getting the performance domain down to 7 from 10, of course, it doesn't mean that we don't have quality anymore, or we don't have communication anymore, we don't have procurement anymore. We do have them. But the reason for that is to help the project manager focus, to narrow the focus of the project. I mean, to broaden the knowledge, but also make sure that the project manager now really is focusing, okay, and not being overwhelmed by, even now 40 processes instead of 49, 7 performance domains instead of 10 knowledge areas. Doesn't mean that project management is simpler or easier. It means we want to get value out of you rather than have you do things that don't have value, for example. Okay. Yep. Quality is part of governance, communication is part of stakeholders. Procurement is in an appendix. Why? Because for me, that means you're going to have more focus on finance, for example. Now, the exam duration has gone up from 3 hours, 50 minutes to 4 hours. Now, those 10 additional minutes, where did they go? Or where are they going to be spent on? I mean, not only the new types of questions which are more entertaining, I would call them this way, okay, but also about the deepness, how called deepness or magnitude of the questions, okay.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, finance and risk, they're closely related a lot. So you have to pay attention to that, and also you have to be the project manager who can recommend whether to continue funding the project to proceed or to stop the funding. You have to continue whether we continue. You have to be able to know when to recommend and what to recommend. Okay, so and always have to know how to balance spending with return on spending or on investment. So it's to be honest, what we're going to see in this new, I mean, I already have that in my training. It's like you have almost an MBA. It's like if you're studying an MBA. Of course, not. I wouldn't compare PMP to an MBA. It's not the same number of hours or the depth of knowledge, but covering all what you see in a general MBA. Okay, uh, I've I've taught I've taught an MBA before. I was teaching MBA programs, and I know what we teach in MBA. So I can tell you, the new PMP, it's really interesting. Gabriel.
Yeah, obviously nothing much to add. MBA, that was never in my radar. I never thought it's going to be, let's say, really correlated, because I always felt like that when cost was explained in PMBOK 6, for example, is just super detailed. I mean, if you are able to comprehend and understand those, and even trying to implement half of it, I mean, you are very much of a financial expert, in my opinion. But yeah, I think this is as an evolution. I think we are moving it into the right direction with the finances where it is today. So yeah, I'm happy.
And then close to finance, you have procurement. Procurement is, it depends on you as a project manager if you participate in conducting procurement or not. But procurement is a process of acquiring what you need, of equipment, resources, etc. Um, Again, it's not performance domain anymore. It's now in an appendix in the PMBOK 8 because, as I said, the authors explain that not all project managers conduct procurement, but it's good to know it. To know how to create a procurement management plan, to understand the procurement process of the company and the impact of the procurement process, the procurement strategy as well. For example, imagine your company decides to buy only imported products or imported components. The company doesn't want to buy anything local. Now, of course, buying something important is more complex and more time consuming than buying something local. Okay, because of the customs, because of the papers, because of the taxes, because of this, of that. Depends where you're buying it from, if there are any agreements with that country, etc., etc. So that also is something important to learn, and to consider. Maybe we won't see such deeper questions, in procurement, but it's part of what you need to know, guys, as a project manager. Okay.
Yeah.
Selecting a vendor, like for example, the screening system, when you have a large number of bids, how to filter that to get a more of a short list of potential bidders. Then a weighing system, how to calculate. You might not get calculations, okay, but at least we train you on that, guys, because I am not teaching you only for the PMP exam. I'm teaching you for practice as well. And in my training, I don't only offer the 35 hours, it's almost 70 hours. 35 is the core for the PMP exam, but the other 35 are covering what you need to know as a project manager. Okay, something that will make you distinguished from the other project managers, something that makes you really know almost everything in project management. And for everything you face in your project or in your initiative or in your assignment, you have a learning about it, whether it's an e-learning, whether it's a platform you practice on, whether it's an exercise, an example, a mock question. That's how we prepare you for real life, okay? I contribute to what PMI is trying to do, which is how do we want companies to look at PMP certified professionals? I contribute to that. And I want I want companies to look high, at you. To really think of you, of someone that can bring bigger value to the company. Okay. Then there are the contract types. In all the previous versions, we had three main contract types, like the fixed price contract, the cost reimbursable contract, the time and material contracts, and then there is the target cost contract. Now there is a new type. It's called the target cost contract. So as a project manager, even if you would say, but contracting differs from country to country, from industry to industry. Where on the PMP training, we teach the common things, the general things. Okay. Now, when we say fixed price contract, we're talking about the contract that, the scope of work is known, the fees or the price is fixed. So that protects the buyer, that protects you as a project team, sorry. Okay. So you shouldn't worry, to have any, even if the seller would increase higher costs, you're protected because you've already agreed on the contract. The cost reimbursable, we use it when there is no fixed scope, because, for example, we have a broken machine in the project. We need to fix it. We don't know what's broken in it, so the company that will fix it, they don't know really exactly what's in it. So we will reimburse them for whatever cost they incurred plus a fixed fee for their profit or for their labor or whatever we call it. Okay, so that's an example of a cost reimbursable contract. We use it, as I said, but it's a high risk contract because you might end up paying more than you expected. The time and materials contract is something hybrid. Okay, it's common for consulting work, etc. So you pay for their time and any material they used. And then the target cost contract, it's savings or overruns. So the savings or the overruns, they're shared between the buyer and the seller. Okay, so it's based on target. So to encourage efficiency and share the incentives. Okay, so these are the main 4 types of contracting. I think we have in the PMBOK 8. I picked this slide among the other slides I have in my full training. And I try to make this as simple, as clear as possible for the students. Okay, as you said, Gaber, sometimes a slide you can spend 15 minutes explaining it. Okay, that's why,
exactly.
In this new PMBOK 8 training I have a little bit less slides than in PMBOK 7. PMBOK 7 slides were 828. This version I have 798, I think. So it's 20 or 30 slides less because, we have richer slides.
That's good.
I want to give the students better quality slides so that they can sometimes have one slide that covers the entire section or chapter.
No, I mean, I think that's also really fit for purpose. And I think, also the way I always like to add to contract management is, and contract types, they are all fantastic, but I think we need to be just simply reminded that 95% of the world is still a fixed price contract. Because if I go to the local coffee shop and I see that the coffee is £2.50, then I'm going to pay just £2.50, because all the rest, the answer will be all depends on the project, be honest with you. And I think that's what you all need to, envision, because those contracts will not work everywhere. To give you an example, cost reimbursable contract, you go to your favorite pizza place, Ahmed, you order your pepperoni pizza, which costs, let's say, 10 euros. And then on the bottom, it will say, if you like the food, you give me additional 5 euros. And can you imagine this business model that you go there, you eat the pizza, a waiter arrives and said, Ahmed, did you like the pizza? I said, no, I don't, but I eat it all. So the idea is just, and then this is just, I'd like to use this as an example for everybody's understanding that the contract types will be not fit for purpose for everywhere, but there can be definitely situations where there can be a benefit to using a cost reimbursable contract. And I think our job is just to give people the right type of examples to make sure they can envision what does that really mean.
Yeah.
Maybe one more. I have so many ideas. So, for example, what is the best contract for Agile? I think that's something which we're still not going to find on PMBOK 8. Because
actually, officially in PMBOK 8, in Agile, you can use any type of contracting. Fixed price, you can have an Agile. Time and materials, you can have an Agile.
But if you think about it this way,
I'm
fully with you. But if you think about it this way, so either what type of Agile projects we have, either we have a fixed start, fixed end agile, or we can have a this iterative, continuous delivery type of project. Now, in that sense, if you follow just these two ideas, I mean, fixed start, fixed end, fixed price contract, more or less will be fine. And then if I have to go into this iterative basis, most likely that will be a time and material. And then you might ask the question, PMI, why don't you just tell me this exactly this way? Well, that's why they want you to think their way to make sure you figure it out instead of me telling you as a definition. And that's what I realized.
All right, interesting. Then these are for just some emerging trends, how AI is changing contract management. Now, this is I know I brought this slide from my training just because of this bar here. AI and automation, they're reshaping contract structure, execution management. So AI is helping us have more accurate risk assessment. It's easier now to negotiate. It's faster now to negotiate since AI can get us information quicker. We can be more compliant. We can predict cost overruns already from previous historical data. We can even optimize now the contract terms because AI can support with this by either quick research or by extracting data from previous experiences, and we can even improve the performance of tracking and adaptive decision makings. Okay, so these are the emerging trends. As I said, the agile contracting. There is the smart contract. So agile contracting is about applying agile principles to contract type, to be more flexible, iterative delivery, continuous collaboration. There are smart contracts that integrate blockchain technology with traditional contract structures to automate execution of contract items. There is outcome-based contracts, which shift from input-based pricing to measurable results. Sustainable contracting, which embed the ESG, environment, social governance principles into contracts. These for most of the types, or not most, I wouldn't say most, but for many types of, or in many industries, you can see that. And then collaborative contracting, which is enhancing the risk sharing or reward sharing, as we saw here, the target cost contract. So, by the way, these are all from the PMBOK.
I'm not sure we can hear you.
Sorry?
Maybe just in my end, maybe something happened to your microphone.
Are you okay? Do you hear me?
No, I cannot hear you at the moment.
I can hear you. Can you see me? Guys, and watching, can you please leave a comment if you can hear me or not? Can anyone hear me?
Now I can hear you now.
Yeah? Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah. I can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. So I was explaining these emerging trends in contracts. So I went through all of them. I hope it was recorded. And no one from the audience left a comment saying that they cannot hear me. So I don't know, to be honest. Yeah?
Ooh.
Can you hear me?
Well,
hello? Yeah, everyone watching, can you hear us? Gabriel?
It seems like I have a technical issue. It seems just better me for a second.
Yeah? Do you have technical issue? All right. All right, guys. So finally, with tips and tricks about finance and procurement. So when a question in the exam mentions project funding, try to go for the answer that confirms the funding source, the timing, any constraints related to that funding, approval structure or approval levels, and also who's accountable for what before committing to project work. In case the funding comes from a contract with a customer, focus on contractual obligations, the payment terms, the protecting the scope. If funding comes from an internal budget, look for the alignment for the strategy or to stay aligned within the portfolio's priorities. If the business case becomes weaker, do not focus only on the budget performance, but also reassess expected value and also the planned benefits. When asked whether to build internally or buy externally, think about the make or buy analysis. We have it in our training. When the procurement is complex or uncertain, avoid always the lowest price seller. Actually, go always for the specified selection criteria as as part of the procurement management plan. Least cost fits standard or routine procurement. So the least cost, it fits the standard or routine procurement, while complex procurement should give stronger weight to quality and risk. When source selection is discussed, always go for the answer that applies predefined and weighted criteria, such as technical, quality, experience, schedule, delivery schedule, etc. If the bidders ask questions during procurement, always give the same clarification to all the bidders. When when there is an issue in procurement that affects the schedule, the cost, the quality, etc., analyze the impact and then manage it through the change management process. If a vendor relationship is important for a long-term value, always go for managing performance, improving communication, collaboration, and avoid penalties. And finally, if two answers seem to be correct, choose the one that protects value for money, the contractual integrity, ethical procurement, risk balance, business case alignment, rather than simply going for reducing cost. Gabriel, do you hear me?
No, yeah, I'm back. Something happened with the audio, but yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, you scared me, man. All right, so I just went through some tips and tricks with the audience. I think I've covered it all. Okay. Anything to add from your side?
No, I think this also shows that the cost management and procurement, they're working in a very close synergy with each other, and looking forward, that is really shown here. I mean, the basic principles will still apply, which most of it already exist, but there's a higher emphasis on how the project manager should view this from an end-to-end perspective in terms of benefits, in terms of finances for the project. So yeah, I mean, this will be exciting times coming ahead for all the candidates taking the PMP exam.
Yep. Okay, guys, I think we have shared all. I really thank everyone. I don't know if there are any questions from the audience, but I didn't see any. So, what is it? Oh, it's here actually. So, all right. So, guys, yeah. Thank you, Tasneem. I think that's it. So, next session number 8, the last session will be next Wednesday, 7th. No, next. Wednesday, 7th of July. And it's a specific. No, 8th of July. Next Wednesday, 8th of July.
8th of July, the grand finale.
Exactly. The grand finale, 8th of July, 8th test session. It's just one day before the official launch, so it's going to be a special session, AI, risk, agile, and more. So stay tuned, guys. It's going to be at 5 p.m. GMT +1. So we will see you then. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
All right, Gabriel. So I hope you